Welcome to StopFake, the place where we debunk disinformation about Ukraine and set the record straight. My name is Mykhailo Wynnyckyj. I teach in the Sociology Department and at the Business School at Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, and I'll be presenting this week's edition of Russian Information Mendacity Exposed. This week, we examine the Russian media's inflated reporting on Vladimir Putin's supposedly huge success at last week's G20 summit. We show that Czech trade unions have not spoken out against visa-free travel to the EU for Ukrainians, and we demonstrate that despite Russia's best effort, or perhaps worst, the 2017 Eurovision Song Contest will in fact be held in Kyiv. That and more in this week's Digest. So let's get to it. The busiest schedule. An open and honest meeting with the US president that Barack Obama himself requested. According to the Kremlin media, the G20 summit was a huge triumph for Russian President Vladimir Putin. Why, he even led the column of presidents and prime ministers as they entered the conference hall in the Chinese city of Guangzhou. Western media, however, were less fawning. The Obama-Putin meeting was described as unofficial and on the sidelines of the summit. The Russian president's schedule was no different from that of any other leader attending the summit, and during the final group photograph, President Obama gave Putin a death stare. Russian media also completely misrepresented what the US president said about his meeting with Putin. Obama called the 90-minute meeting candid, blunt, and businesslike. Russian media declared that Obama said his meeting with Putin was always open, honest, and businesslike. The gaps of trust that prevented any agreement between Washington and Moscow that President Obama talked about were completely ignored by Vesti and other Russian media. Russia's defense ministry channel Zvezda, for some reason, needed to claim that Putin headed the group of leaders as they entered the conference hall while President Obama was last in line. However, in photographs, the Russian president is seen walking side by side with German Chancellor Angela Merkel and the Chinese president, while in another photograph he is behind Merkel and Xi Jinping. The latest fake published by Russia's Sputnik agency claims that, according to Czech Communist Party leader Leo Luzar, Czech trade unions have collectively protested against granting Ukrainians visa-free entry into the EU because this would supposedly jeopardize the Czech labor market. Luzar, however, was not interviewed by Sputnik, and he has nothing to do with Czech unions. He explained his personal anti-visa position in a blog on a little-known Czech website called Halo Noviny. The Czech Confederation of Trade Unions has not made any announcement about visa-free travel for Ukrainians, and the views of a communist from a small minority party certainly can't be viewed as representative of all of the country's trade unions. What the Czech unions have spoken out against are long-term employment visas for Ukrainians, which they believe will dump large numbers of workers on the Czech labor market and drive local wages down. The Russian website Ukraina.ru, a publication that is part of the vast Russia Сегодня media holding company, has published a story claiming that Standard & Poor's rating agency predicts that the city of Kyiv will default on its loans and that the Ukrainian capital has no money to pay its creditors. The S&P news item, in fact, doesn't mention a default. It simply says the agency has lowered Kyiv's rating from CC to CCC. S&P points out that liquidity of the city of Kyiv has improved and that they will call a default only if a municipal bond is not paid in December when it matures. Should payment happen sooner, S&P might in fact raise the city's rating. Scores of Russian media published dubious stories this week claiming that Moscow might host the 2017 Eurovision Song Contest instead of Ukraine. Citing the European Broadcasting Union, the body that oversees and administers the Eurovision contests, Russian media claimed that since Ukraine can't make up its mind as to which city should hold the contest, Russia was willing to step in and host the event. Duma member Leonid Slutsky even said that holding the event in Russia would be a deserved slap in the face for Ukraine, while Russian singer Yuri Loza proudly declared that Russia doesn't need Eurovision. The European Broadcasting Union has not said the contest would be moved to Russia. Should such a decision be made, the EBU assured that they would be the first to announce it. Meanwhile, the EBU announced that the city hosting next year's contest would be the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. The winner of Eurovision is obliged to host the following year's contest. Ukrainian singer Jamala won this year's Eurovision with her song 1944, and this is the second time Ukraine has won the European prize since making its debut in the contest in 2003. That's it for this week. You can find much more dissected disinformation on the StopFake website. Be vigilant, look out for fakes, and if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, send it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Mykhailo Wynnyckyj, and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching.